Dear friend,
Let's discover more of who we are together.
love, Haley and Amanda. Welcome, friends,
Dear friends.
You're listening to the Dear Friend podcast with Haley and Amanda, and we are doing a fun episode. It's actually a part 1 and part 2.
Because our guest today just is packed full of knowledge. You can't even squeeze it all into one episode.
It's me!
Today, I'm going to be getting some tips and tricks and advice from...
I want to thank me for me, you know?
Yep.
Like, I just want to thank me for being
What do you
here.
think we should name this episode?
Me. It's all about me. No, we are talking about an area of my expertise, which we're going to get into, but it still is aligned to what this...
Staying in line. Okay, what?
You really are committed to going high on those BG notes, which I appreciate. I just can't ever match it.
Listen back to it.
I will. I won't. But we are going to stay aligned to our Young Pueblo poem, which is that an honest and deep conversation with a good friend is sometimes the exact nourishment you need to regain clarity, get back up, face the world, and resume your mission with a new and focused energy. And this conversation is about weddings and event planning, which you might think, oh, surface level, ugh. But
Except it's like one of the most important things anyone will ever do if they want to do that.
Yeah, and it's important to be thoughtful. And so I have some expertise on this topic, and so we're gonna just get right in. We're gonna scratch at it.
So Amanda, I obviously am biased, but
Yeah,
I
I
think
know.
that you are one of the most creative.
Ugh.
I just want to. I think that your expertise should be called curator. Remember I said that to you the other day?
You said that you thought that should be my title.
Yeah, because you're visual on like decor, design, but then also like events and gatherings and space and then conversation. It's a lot.
Well, I appreciate that. Those are all things I really do care about. Yeah.
And you're really good at like putting all of those things together, which is one reason why I think that whether you're on this episode, if you care about planning a wedding or an event at all, it does encompass all of those things. It's not very surface level if you're doing it correct and you're really trying to make a meaningful gathering. And that is what... And because you've seen the ins and outs, girl. And I've been knowing you through it, so I know some of them.
You heard all my stories.
Why don't you tell us, what is your kind of umbrella background that gives you the right to tell us all this advice?
Yeah, because I'm going to get cutthroat with my advice.
You need to. And I wish you could go back to some of these events and give it to these people before they did what they did.
Well, so I am an event florist. So I don't have a floral shop like a retail shop. I have a studio that I work out of, and I do all types of events, a lot of corporate events and weddings, obviously. And so I have seen a lot of events. And whenever I first started my journey into floral design, I apprenticed under a designer for several years. And then I got the opportunity to be an in-house florist at an event venue in Dallas, where I was also, if I wasn't doing the floral for the event, I was event managing. So I saw a lot of the ins and outs of many events, hundreds of events.
Ugh.
And then now that have my own business, Zephyr Floral, that's a whole new, like, I'm at a ton of different venues and places where I do events. Like we got to go do a wedding in France, the northern part of France.
Chateau.
At a
Come on.
Yeah, like it's just being out of just one venue, I've gotten to see a lot of different experiences.
And yes, at like certain times you were doing the floral, which was like your part, but doing that and being there from beginning to end, you've just gotten to see so much stuff, the ins and outs of it. You had a leg up on planning your own wedding, obviously, because you knew what to do and what not to do.
Yeah, my engagement was like less than 5 months
because you were like, I got this.
I already knew everything, like because you see all of what people do, and you just learn really fast. Like, oh, that doesn't work. This does. Like, I know what I want.
And you guys, you have to go look at her floral. She does so many other things. She's even in interior design, but her floral, she would never say this about herself, but she's been in like Martha Stewart, all kinds of stuff. Like, girls up there, call in 1-800 dear friend.
Yeah,
it's too many letters. So I'm dying for you to share.
Yeah, and we're talking about weddings a lot, but a lot of this goes for any event, because obviously, like, I've worked with like LinkedIn and Cisco systems, like doing corporate events. So this kind of there will be some wedding specific things, but if you're planning an event, even a dinner party at your house, like, it's good to be thoughtful about some of these things.
Y'all
regardless,
know how much we love that book, Art of Gathering, and it just kind of brings in this, like, no matter anytime you're joining with someone. Anytime you're joining with someone, 3 or more, you should have some sort of intent and vision and meaning behind your gathering. And then all of these other things you should look to an expert for. And that's what we're going to get her tips on.
Yeah, these are some good tips.
Amanda, what is the worst thing you've ever seen happen at an event, period? Go.
Okay, yeah, this has nothing to do technically with the decor, but Haley loves this story.
I love it.
That because it's just so
you can't
bad.
believe it.
You can't believe it.
I can't believe this stuff.
I was event managing this wedding, so I was not doing the floral. And it seems like it's a bad movie when I say it, but it's true. Like, it's a real life story that happened. And it was this couple, I want to say they were in their mid to late 20s getting married. And right after the ceremony, like...
Was the event going well?
Yeah, sure. Like, it was going, and it was like after the ceremony when people are just getting to the reception, I went outside to find, I had to go take something to the trash, the dumpster, and the groom was having sex with the maid of honor in the bushes. And I didn't know it was them at first, but I got the security guard because I was like, there's people doing it in the bushes, and like they can't do that. And it was the groom and the maid of honor. But this
should be a segment, Make Mistakes.
Yeah, seriously. And so then later in the night, I find the bride and a wedding guest making out in the groom's suite where they got ready.
No,
maybe they have an open relationship, but on your wedding
get married?
Day, on your wedding day, it was very odd.
Okay,
so that's probably the worst.
So if that was a do or don't, they were doing a lot of don'ts.
Maybe like be a little bit more, like
loyal.
Well, or just like feel like you're making the right commitment to the right person. Like, I don't know. It was very strange. I just kept like texting you, I think, through the night, like, you'll not believe this.
This is crazy.
But then like the best events I have been a part of are like when people allow their personalities to like come through the event, like where it feels really personal.
Yeah.
I think people get really trendy, and people also want to entertain their guests, and I totally get that. But guests, I think, actually prefer. They're there to celebrate you. They could go anywhere for for a personal experience, in the sense of like they can pick which kind of food they want at a restaurant and have like a different experience. But like they're there to celebrate you. And so the more you it is, like I think the more they're going to have fun if they love and care about you.
Well, I was going to say, hopefully if someone's at a day or an event that's this important, they know you pretty well, hopefully. Yeah. And so they would be able to tell if it didn't feel or look like something authentic to you, which would feel not aligned and awkward.
Yeah. And like when it comes to corporate, I would say like even if you're really aligned to like your brand and what you're about, like that's those are the events that feel, I don't know, the most fun and natural than like them trying to do all this stuff to make everybody feel like they're cool and at something cool.
Whoa.
You know what I mean?
Okay, so let's say I have found the love of my life. I haven't.
Okay. But you're going to.
I am. So
Soon.
okay. What is your advice, like if we're standing at the very beginning, if we're talking about weddings particularly, someone just gets engaged, they're not someone like you who have seen a whole bunch of events and weddings, they don't know where should the
where should the
thought process start? Where should their mind and their heart go to first thing they do?
So I think that there's a lot of this idea that it's the woman's job to do everything. And I will say, typically, I know a lot of women, when you're like a young girl, you have been dreaming about this, and probably in a lot of cases, you've thought about it maybe a lot more than the male, the groom. But that's not all cases. Some grooms have a lot of opinions about stuff. And so you probably have some ideas about things you like and things you want. But I think it's really important that you and your fiance, or the person that you're going to marry, get a good conversation in first about, I would say the first thing is what time of year you want to get married.
Ooh.
Because the season is really going to be a huge guiding point to your whole vibe. So I think, if you're like, oh, I really lean towards fall, we'll see what your fiance leans toward. And then maybe you guys can pick something that's either neither of those things, that's a compromise, or you guys can talk each other into one or the other.
But is this like a season that you feel like yourself the most in that season? Or like, I like the colors of the season, the plants or the flowers of the season?
Yeah, I think if you're like a really aesthetically driven person like I am, I was drawn to the season that I picked because I loved the color scheme that naturally is floral wise in season. But also I kind of feel like my husband and I's vibe is fall-y, which, you know what I mean? Like,
weird.
It's kind of, I don't know, like
you're kind of right.
An aura or like a vibe. But I mean, there's people who they're not like, they don't have a summer vibe, but they would love a beach wedding. You know what I mean? And so then you're obviously going to pick a warmer month.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like,
so temperature to weather.
Yeah, color scheme around. And why I say color scheme is because like when it comes to natural elements like floral, there are going to be certain things that are in season and then are not in season in different seasons. So if there's certain things that you just love color wise, then you might pick the season that's the highest point.
And I would already like to say that we're talking about planning a wedding and picking a date, which sounds surface level, but you've already taken it right back to what matters to you, what makes you feel like yourself, and start there,
Yeah.
So if it's the time of year, and then what do you think?
So then I think the very next thing is, after you've picked the season you want to get married in, is to pick your venue.
Ooh.
Because your venue is going to be a huge determining factor on which direction your event's going to go in. And this is obviously outside of weddings too, but like if you pick a more industrial venue, then it's with exposed brick and all of this, like you're going to have not a refined ballroom type of wedding. You know what I mean? Like, so you're going to pick things that go with that vibe.
So you have like a vibe in mind, like almost like you're setting a tone, and then you pick the...
Yeah, but if you don't have one in mind, go to a lot of different venues. Like, go to an industrial venue, go to a ballroom, go to a farm, go to something, so you can see what you gravitate towards most in person. Or if you're on Pinterest or something, like look at those pictures. What pictures are you drawn to? Like, do you like the industrial vibe? Do you like a boho vibe? Do you like a really elegant soiree type of vibe? And that's going to guide you to your
so
venue.
Much.
And yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, and your wedding, you picked a place, or you can just tell us why you picked that place. But, I heard you talking about when we were preparing for this, like that some people, they pick a place that's like a blank box, so you can kind of do whatever you want. Or you can pick something that already has this
tons of character and like it's already set, which is what I did. So I think it depends on your budget, which we're going to talk about budget and stuff. If you pick a blank box, you have to fill it. You know what I mean? Like you have to turn that space into something. But if there's a space you're really drawn to that already has this vibe going strong and you're adding just a little bit because you love how it looks and feels in there, well, then you're going to save a lot of money. For instance, I got married at Los Poblanos Lavender Farm in New Mexico.
Gorgeous.
But what's so cool about that place, like why I picked it specifically, was every room, every space is this gorgeous Spanish style New Mexican vibe where you have folk art everywhere. There were big fresco paintings outside of the ballroom. There was that Spanish tile everywhere. They had the gorgeous wooden chandeliers where we had the cocktail hour was a huge library room that's like a real library and had gorgeous couches. And
that wasn't a blank box that you filled with books.
I didn't buy 5,000 books and fill it to decorate. So it's just like, for me, that was a huge budget saver that I picked this space that I thought was so beautiful and loved its ambiance, that all I did was add little touches of Michael and I to it. But because I felt like it already had our vibe, we got engaged in Spain. It had this Spanish vibe that we both love Spain so much. It was just like, I don't know, it felt like us and the things that we really like. So you can go the white box route, but you should expect to spend money to make it into whatever you want. But if you are trying to be budget conscious, you should really try to pick a space that already encompasses your vibe as much as possible, and you don't have to add too much.
Okay, well, since you've mentioned budget, let's just, it's the elephant in the room. Everybody talks about this. If you're talking about a wedding, well, and events in general, they get expensive,
They really do.
But, you can have an event based off of a sliding scale of budget, but you also have some good tips and tricks for how to make your money go really far and be really meaningful.
Yeah.
And also, you've seen a lot of people that have spent a crap ton on something that
was hideous.
Yes. Worst waste of money ever.
Yeah, I've seen people spend large budgets on events where it's just...
Please tell about the...
Yeah, there's this one where they had $100,000 floral budget. Like, can you imagine, like, spending $100,000 on just flowers? Going in, I didn't do that wedding. I was event managing that wedding. And so I was thinking, I can't wait to see what this is going to look like. I bet it's going to be spectacular. They're going to transform this place. It was the ugliest thing I had ever seen. It was
How did they spend
$100,000? For one thing, the centerpieces were this tower of flowers that
flower tower?
Yeah, went up with a huge umbrella that was just sticking up out the top, like a black umbrella.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, not even a cool umbrella. A black umbrella and all colors of flowers.
I've got to see a picture of this.
I wish I had.
I think it's against HIPAA.
Yeah. HIPAA.
I don't know.
Yeah, no, it was horrible, and I was just awestruck.
Costs a lot of money.
Well, I'm saying that's like one thing, like their centerpiece, but that was very grand in the sense that it was tons of flowers, very tall, but like one of the ugliest things I've ever seen in my life.
Oof.
Money doesn't mean taste is something I've learned.
It usually doesn't.
Yeah. So, everybody's budgets obviously are different, and you should not feel insecure about your budget at all. What I think is the most important thing is before you start anything, to settle in on a budget, whether your parents are helping you or it's just you and your fiance or whatever. Like, y'all settle on a budget, and then you're going to have to get really stretchy and creative if it's small, and you can.
Well, and then that money goes towards stuff
that's important.
Right.
And I mean, it does add up. Like photography, if videography is important to you, like right there, that can be like almost $10,000 if you're getting, depending on like
Yep.
high quality. Like, so it can add up. But like what I did, for instance, was for photography, a friend of mine, she did photography as a hobby, but I actually think, I've always thought she had an extraordinary eye. And I said, hey, she lives in Nashville, and I said, hey, I really want you and your husband to come to the wedding. How would you feel about being the photographer? And I'll pay for you guys to fly out. I'll pay for your hotel, and obviously give you a little sum of money to do it. And she was ecstatic to like try. And I was like, no pressure. Like, I think you have a great eye. And I did trust her, obviously. Like, if I didn't trust her, I wouldn't have asked. But like, that was a very small portion of what I would have paid for like a very established photographer. And my pictures are very personal, like, because she was really excited to do it. So she was really trying to do cool stuff, and it's very artistic. And then my brother-in-law, he edits videos for his job. He's not technically like a videographer, but he had a friend come and take footage with his nice camera, and then he edited it all for me as like a gift. And so it was nice. It was nice to have those things, and I really wanted those things, so I had to get creative on how to get them, because if I did them full price, like, it would have blown my budget in areas that I wanted to spend money on too. So,
and what is something, because you've shared a lot of this with me too, like things that you've seen people do at events or weddings, or that you've done, that not just like videography and photography, but that people have done that you're like, dang, that was cheap, but it's so cool and creative and meaningful.
Yeah. There was this one wedding that was, I felt like they spent their money really well. Like, it felt grand, but it wasn't like, I did her floral. And so we did these really tall vases that she bought really cheap off of like Facebook Marketplace. And all I did was put large greenery that I cut off of trees.
Oh.
Like, I just went foraging and I put greenery in it. So they looked like really grand, like tree-like centerpieces. And then we did and on some of the other tables we did like candles, but we did like all varying heights, and they were really beautiful. And then so it looked really grand. The room looked really grand and elegant. Like, she made really good choices. But then for food, it felt like this elegant affair. And then In-N-Out Burger people show up with their little costumes on, like their hats and silver trays. We had them serve French fries and burgers. But people were like, oh, thank God it's not wedding food. Because you know how wedding food can be, like catering can be kind of gross.
Yeah.
And they were like, yes, like burgers. But it was like cute because they're on silver platters and they were being served. And so there's fun ways like that. Because they loved In-N-Out Burger, and they felt like it was a fun way to, and then they spent money on like a milkshake station where people could go. So it felt like, do you know what I mean? Like,
totally.
You can spend your money in unique ways that are fun, and your guests will actually, it still felt like an elegant affair, even though that was In-N-Out, they made In-N-Out elegant. You know what I mean? It was cute.
I love it. Are there any other tips and tricks on budget? Anything else?
Yeah, I think you have to decide what's the most important element for you. Like, maybe you're a huge foodie. Maybe you think floral is just like visually going to be something that is really important to you in pictures and just the whole experience and vibe. Maybe having live music at your reception. Like, you've got to kind of pick something that's like a big budget item that you just have to have, and then get creative with the other stuff. You know what I mean? So because you want to, I mean, we want to have it all, but sometimes we can't afford it. So it's kind of like that Dr. Sun and Shine.
I think it's Sun and Shine.
Yeah.
I think.
Sun and Shine, where he talks about like you get such better results when you're being stretchy and creative instead of being chasey, because you already have when you have tons of money, it's easy to just throw it at stuff.
So you don't have to think as hard about it. You don't have to make it work and get creative.
Yeah. I just think you find the thing you really you want it to be the best of that thing and spend your money on it, and then get creative with the other stuff.
I love it. Yeah. Well, listen, I have so many other things that we need to talk about, but we're kind of, I think this is where we should kind of pause to transition into our part 2.
Okay.
Because it's more of a list that we have to talk about.
Well, yeah, because we need to talk about
food,
decor, food and drinks. Yeah.
Invitations, guest
list, assigned seating or open seating.
I know.
Okay, so we'll get to this stuff in part 2, but I do want to say, like, whatever event you're doing, it's kind of like one of our most popular episodes that we've done is Beata Human Part 1, where we talk about she's an interior designer. Her book, Every Room Should Sing. We talk about how your house and your decor should reflect yourself, and that you should have a little bit of, quirk in there. You should have the things that really reflect you and your personality, and especially on something like your wedding day, like an event like this, even however small or large it is. This is a place where you really want to reflect yourself, and don't worry about being trendy. Like, be authentically you as a couple and let that come across, because that's going to, I think, later on you'll look back and won't be like, oh, that trend's already out. Like, you'll be like, oh, that's so us. Well, that was so us.
And your wedding should be like a bookmarker, these little things that we do to bookmark places in our lives that are special so that they do stick.
Yeah, and I think that's really important, because I remember when I got engaged, my dad and I sat down to talk about the wedding, and I said, listen, I would feel really comfortable, like, eloping with just, like, the parents, you know what I mean? And or like a justice of the peace or something.
Your parents and me.
Yeah, and you, of course. And I said, so I'm happy to go that route. And he was like, I really think that this should be a moment that starts y'all's journey, and it should be memorable. And I think you're going to want your favorite people in the world there to, like, be alongside you as you make this big commitment. So when you look back on it, it was like a launching point for you guys. And it does feel like that.
Yay.
Like, when I think back on our wedding day, because it was only 2.5 years ago now, I like our friends who are in our lives every day were there spurring us on and supporting us. And that's very, I don't know, it feels really good to be surrounded by your people, and when you're making such a big choice like that.
Well, and there's some more I want to talk about from your wedding next episode, part 2.
Okay.
But for now, we'll leave you with this. And we are your hosts, Haley and Amanda, just so you know.
So you don't forget. And we are recording here at Fernedware, and the podcast is produced, recorded, edited by Will Flato. I almost said Flato. Sorry, Flato.
It's German.
And the music that you hear at the beginning and end of the podcast is
by our band Sister, and you can look us up at sistertheband.com. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram.
Watch us on YouTube at Dear Friend Podcast, or Dear Friend, Podcast.
Yes.
And we'll see you next time for part 2.
See you next time.